I just want to go back here to this fungia. It does have a piece of Formula One going into a mouth right there. And presuming those shrimp or fish come along, you can see tentacles right in here, feeder tentacles. So this coral was force fed essentially. You can see some of the tentacles there. In fact, I think some of the tentacles are holding that piece of Formula One, and now maybe the fish will chase it away. And it's barely being held by a couple of tentacles. If you look just to the left in the center, you'll see a couple of white dots attached to tentacles going up through the middle of the animal here. This area. You see there's more tentacles there. So that was not there originally, and by putting the funnel over and leaving the food sit there a long time, you force the animal into a feed mode. The tentacles come out, and in fact, you can see you probably can't see the Formula One, but that dark area right in the middle is the mouth that's open. And it's probably already eaten a piece of Formula One. So again, this particular coral, if you've got one like it, definitely needs to be fed at least once a week like this, or it will die. The tissue will start receding and it'll die. A few more comments. I never feed the Acropora. They seem to do just fine filter feeding out of the water. I don't think they would eat Formula One anyway. They eat phytoplankton and small plankton out of the water. Other animals I don't feed are the bird nest, the Pocasella, corals either, and certainly you don't feed the clams. The clams do not need to be fed solid food. They take nitrate out of the water, and other microorganisms. They take microorganisms out of the water along with other nitrate. The remaining animals I feed at night. And don't worry about overfeeding the corals during your session. Whatever food's left over will go into the column, and the fish and the shrimp and everything will eat it. In fact, chances are you could just that's that day's feeding. When you feed the corals, the fish will get the leftovers, and you don't need to feed the fish separate. Okay. I had mentioned earlier that almost all these Acropora coral heads have a crab inside. You may be able to see just in the center of the image there's something moving, and that's the crab. That's on this brown Acropora. That's what this is. That's what you're looking at now. Is this little piece that broke off. It was about the size of my top of my thumb, and now it's about the size of my fist. And you can see the sweepers off to the right there. Fortunately, this specimen is small enough that it's not going to cause a problem. At least not for now. It'll probably be 6 months to a year before it gets big enough to start staying animals around it. Okay, this is my current centerpiece. It's a very large purple tip elegans, and I got it perhaps 7 months ago. And when expanded, it's about 2 feet, maybe a little short of 2 feet long, and 1 foot wide. It's a very large structure, and it takes up an ever-increasing amount of tank space. So, because I want to go SPS, and because it's so large, I've decided I'm going to get rid of it. I know someone who has a 350-gallon system they put together recently, and I think I will give it to that person. And you can see how the wave maker affects the currents if you watch the tentacles of this animal. Perhaps we can zoom in. I feed this elegans once a week, usually Formula 1. And then I have to stand guard for the shrimp. Cleaner shrimp won't eat it, eat the food I'm giving to it. Now off below that, and sitting on the sand, is a tongue coral I've had for quite a while. And right now it's a little upset because the chorus tried to flip it over. It used to sit lengthways left to right, and now it's sitting a little bit front to back because the chorus knocked it around trying to get food. I've had this coral for, probably one of my oldest corals, probably 4 years. And it hasn't grown a whole lot physically. But then again, it doesn't seem to be of ill health, so perhaps they're just slow growers. You can see some of the coloration of the sand. I've got about a 5-inch sand bed. It's just a deep sand bed, but you can see some of the color bands in there. Some greens, some coral and algae, different colors, and quite a bit of large bubbles come out from deep underneath the sand. I assume that's denitrification occurring. This is another fairly new addition. It's a yellow-green bird nest coral, and it's a fairly pretty specimen. And I'm waiting for it to acclimate to start taking cuttings of that. You can see the plumber's putty down there in the bottom that holds it in place. And I see now the polyps are coming out more or less in force. So it's a good sign. I think it'll do well. It's perhaps, I think, 3 weeks old or so right now. Now, to the right of that is a, I guess they call this a modern meat coral. It's another real slow grower. It hasn't grown essentially at all in 8 or 9 months that I've had it. This one I feed at night. The feeder tentacles seem to come out at night. And kind of wanted to show you some of the coral, and it's kind of hard to see it with this lighting. The 10K bulbs are quite bluish white, and there's a lot of reflection off the rocks, and so it does not show up real good, the coloring. But perhaps here in the shadowy areas I can give you an example of what the coralline looks like. Lots of deep purples and lighter purples, and very little, actually very little red or pink. This is some of those formans or romans, can't even pronounce them, growing in here. These are clusters of single-celled animals. And you can see the coral in there, quite deep purple. And these guys grow on top of that. Next, I wanted to show you a fungia. I picked this up locally as a special. The local fish store had a whole tank full of these, going for about, I think, $15 a piece. And it's about 3 inches in diameter. But the interesting thing about it is that it tends to grow thicker. The skeleton is thicker on the left. It's not symmetrical if you look at it. It's kind of bulbous on the upper left, and then it slopes down more narrow on the right. And that is due to the water flow, the predominant water flow of the wave maker, which is left to right. You can see right now there's not much motion at all. And soon the wave maker will start up, and it draws water along the bottom here on the right-hand side of the tank. You can see the current picking up, and it's a left to right current flow. And apparently that's causing this coral to grow more on the left than the right, growing into the current. This is a T. maxima, a brown mantled one, that I've had for quite a long time, almost 4 years. And it started out about 2 inches, and it's about 4 inches now. And it does have some bleaching going on in the central area. Let's see if I can come up close here. You see that middle area is bleached. And I believe that it's because it's really not getting enough light right now. It's a little off angle. It isn't pointed straight up. It does have some purple beginning on the edges here. But all in all, it's not a very pretty clam, actually. Now up above the clam is a very nice yellow lettuce. And it's doing real well. Lots of folds and ridges, and much of it new growth. Now to its left is another yellow plate coral, although I don't know what its species is. It doesn't tend to ridge like the other one. And I've had it quite a while. I've had that maybe 3 years. And it has withstood hair algae and bubble algae growth when it was in the 55-gallon tank. And you can see there's lots of scoring tissue that had been eaten away. In fact, the thing had degraded quite far before I finally decided to put it in. Put it in this thing. You see it's kind of a groove cut into it there, and off to the right is an area that was all dead, and it's come back quite a bit. So it's going to do well here.